I came here, but you can believe that it was on purpose. You can believe it was on purpose. I have a very interesting panel, three amazing ladies to present. The three of them are members of the ICANN Board, and apart from that, they have very extensive and relevant careers. So please, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Tripti Sinha, okay? Tripti Sinha, welcome, join us. Sarah Deutsch. Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
No.
Oh. And Avri, you know Avri. Avri Doria.
Well, Avri's a board member.
She's a board member.
Future ex-board member.
So thank you very much for joining us today. So we will try to do this very interactive without silencio, silence. You will learn Spanish. Silencio is silence in Spanish. Very interactive, and I want to share some questions and comments from these incredible ladies with you, and of course invite you to share your experiences, not only from women experiences, but also men that have been involved in selection or selecting board members or leadership positions in different organizations. Maybe you can share your experiences with us. So we have these incredible ladies. Tripti has a very extensive academic, and she's a technical. She has a technical background, right?
Right, yeah.
And you work in the academy, but in charge of the DNS. Can you tell us very shortly what's your responsibility now?
Sure. So, well, thank you very much for having me. My name is Tripti Sinha. I'm from the University of Maryland, and I'm Chief Technology Officer at the university. So my portfolio actually is internet technologies, and also University of Maryland runs one of the DNS root servers, and it's been doing that since 1987. So that comes under my portfolio as well.
You know, you remember that the root servers were mentioned by Becky a while ago. So her university runs one of them, which is a very important part of the DNS and the stability of the internet. Sarah Deutsch. She's also a ICANN board member, and she's an attorney specialized in intellectual property in the private sector, right?
Right. So, thank you for having me. And I started out as an intellectual property lawyer because it looked like an interesting field, and I went to work for a small telephone company called Bell Atlantic that became Verizon, and I wound up staying there almost 24 years. And the only reason I think I got into this space and was allowed to work on internet issues was because that wasn't considered very important at the corporation. If you were an important lawyer, you worked on regulatory telecom issues, people knew about pole attachments, rights of way, but my little field was considered dead and unimportant. So so I learned about ICANN right when it started, and it's been an amazing opportunity to meet all of you folks and work with you over the years. And then since retiring, I've been doing the ICANN Board, EFF Board, and teaching some privacy and still practicing a bit of law. So.
Thank you, Sarah. Avri, she's also a board member, but she also is active in IETF, in IGF. So you want to add something? We know you very well, and you have been participating.
Yeah, I want to mention one other thing that I do that's interesting and people might be interested in, and I haven't heard these initials yet, the IRTF, the Internet Research Task Force, where we actually have a research group that I co-chair on human rights considerations, human rights protocol considerations of how to think about things like human rights while you're writing a protocol or designing an architecture.
So human rights and protocols, can you imagine?
See, I've always lived with one foot in each of the policy and technical camps, so that's one of those places to try and bring those things together.
Great. Very interesting in this time that we talk about protocols and how they impact decisions and machine learning and all that. So we have to talk about inclusive internet, gender perspective, and open and equitable internet. So these three ladies in relevant leadership positions, what can you tell us about which are the difficulties that women found in achieving these leadership positions? You already have them, but If you will look at the numbers, I was looking at the numbers of in the ICANN board. I counted 20 people and 6 are women, which is much better than before. It was worse before. Maybe Vanda remembers that.
But in my time, the first time, we were 5, and then dropped to 3, then dropped to 1, and back to many, and now it's the largest number of women.
But we never got majority, yeah? No.
No.
You have fixed everything.
I'm a board member in ISOC, and we are 2.
Smaller board. It's a smaller.
12. Not that small. 12, 2. It's yeah. Okay. So we have a way to go. There is something that happens. So perhaps what do you think about what happens with women? They don't have the time, they don't apply, they are shy, they are not selected. What do you think that happens with women in trying to achieve these leadership positions in ISTAR organizations or in board of companies? And what difference you find in you achieving those positions? Who would like to start?
I'll start.
You start.
Okay, so I think the internet is open and equitable, but leadership opportunities for women across the board, regardless of sector, are not. We actually attended a very interesting course at the Kennedy School on women's leadership issues, and the numbers were really, kind of appalling. So for the past 25 years, women have entered the workforce at the same level as men. So the feeding of the pipeline, we're all there. Plus, there are very strong anti-discrimination policies in most companies and across the world. But the women's rising to leadership is actually quite low. And in fact, in the U.S., only 2.2% of women are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, or 15% are board directors. And for women of color, the gap is even greater, only 3% of directors. So why is that? Is it because we're feeding the pipeline with all the women and we have the clear policies? And the real reason is because there's still invisible gender bias, and women are discriminated against for both sides of the spectrum. If you're considered like some typical female traits like cooperative and empathetic and good at working with others, and that you're viewed as not strong enough to be a successful leader. But then if you have qualities that men often have, assertiveness, self-confidence, you're viewed as arrogant and brash and not qualified for leadership. So you can be punished and discriminated against on both ends of the spectrum. So it doesn't have anything to do with our internet space. It's really pervasive across the board.
Yeah, it's all over. And if you look at the pyramid at the lower part, there are many women working in internet companies, in technology companies, and then when you go up into the pyramid, it really becomes very, very low amount of percentage of women in leadership positions. Tripti, you have a technical background in computer science. What's your impression? And also, what do you think that happened? If you look at the history of the programming, history of computing, you see a lot of women having relevant roles in doing amazing things. What happened in between? There seems to be a gap in between today and that time. What happened in between?
It's very interesting.
In your view.
Yeah, so my degree is in computer science, and when I started my career 30 years ago, I started as a software engineer. And I always tell the story of how I started at the top layer of the stack, and then I moved my way down the stack as I moved up the stack in leadership. And I did notice that software engineering in general, there are more women in software engineering, and as you got into systems administration and down to networks, there are fewer and fewer women. And of course, I kind of moved up in leadership as I went down to the network layer. And there are very few women in my field, very few. And I was on a panel once where we were trying to understand why. Why is that the case? And as you said, there were lots of women programmers. When you look at IDEAC, the first 6 women, there were 6 women programmers. And Ada Lovestock from England was considered one of the founding members of computing. So there's one thought that's been proposed, is that when you look at the lower levels, typically when you're building networks, you're going into dark, dingy corners, right? You're going to closets and you're carrying heavy equipment, and you're laying fiber in the ground and so forth. These are just, kind of grungy things that you need to do. And when you're a software engineer, you're sitting in a nice desk environment, you're, installing OSs and so forth, but you're interacting with the screen, with probably in an office with sunshine coming in and so forth. So we don't know if it has something to do with that, with the physical surroundings, which maybe women like being in, better like in well-lit environments and so forth. But in general, I would say, when you look at what's happening in Silicon Valley, it's very sexist, and women entrepreneurs are having a hard time. I think we're new to the workforce. If we're very young in the workforce. We don't know how to support each other. That's something that women don't know how to support each other. We don't know how to network. We don't know how to play ball with each other, and that has to change. Men have been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they're good at it. So I think that's one of the reasons we don't see as many women at the top. I mean, men are always thinking, oh, I got to call my buddy and put him on this board and call so-and-so to interview for this job. And women don't do that.
These are different thoughts they
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
and then sometimes we lack of that. And Avri, in your perspective, when we exchanged some of these ideas before the panel, you said that things have improved in your vision somehow, and that somehow they have changed. Can you share your comments
I
about
really
that?
kind of have a mixed view on it. I think if you look at places like the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, it's being led by a woman at the moment in its leadership, and I wish I had remembered to check counts. There are a fair number of women in leadership. It's a purer technical, it's a slightly less political environment than some. So I think in that environment, you've seen some improvements. But then you look at some of the examples like the programmers that write games and applications. And you actually find downright violence against women, whether it's online or actually spreads into the real world. And if you move out of the US and other places, you really find that increases. So I think we have to sort of say, yes, there are some places, where it is improving, but there are a lot of places where the endemic hate of women being anything outside a particular role is still too strong. And so that remains a lower level barrier that has to be beat. And so those are things that also need to be worked on. The general idea of how do you combat violence against women within a Facebook environment or within a Twitter environment. It's a hard problem to solve. So I think it's really several things, from a general cultural problem to the specific internet problem.
Thank you very much. When I was young, and I'm an engineer, and I studied electronic engineer in the early 80s, late 70s in the west of Argentina, I thought that I could do all my career because of my knowledge and my desire of work and development of career, and that was enough. I've been young for many years, so I have realized that is not the case. So it came, and when I was young, I said, quotas for women? No, that's not. I will achieve my place because of my merit. With time, I realized that was not enough. That I'm sure that I missed. I did my career, but I'm sure that I missed many opportunities. Just can be called Olga and not John or Dave, whatever. So at this time of my life, I started to think that in some places it could be good to have quotas, and I want to throw this idea to you and to the audience and think what you think. Some people think this is not the case, that people have to achieve what they need because of their merits and their work, and that others environment this have resulted to be okay, and it worked because it changed somehow the way it's perceived, women are perceived in working and in participating there. What is your perception about that? And I would like also to open the possibility of colleagues in the audience, women and men, to, let them talk first? Okay.
No, I saw your hand going, so it's pointing your hand.
You to talk, so let's,
Few things. The first one is, I think when we are talking about gender balance, when we struggle all together to never without her, we might apply the same in the reverse. Never without him. I think if we want to be fair. The second point is I want to enter to within ICANN stuff a little bit. I suggest I am a member of HRT3, accountability and transparency reporting, and I asked for data about what is the real situation of the board historically on the composition of the board. And for the moment I was denied to make any study about the subject, and of course I can do myself. It's a skill to do it, and it's a problem for me. But I think if we want to progress, we need to do a few things. First, to see what is the situation. When Blonda say we were 3 and 2 and 1, what is the real situation? Is an outcome enhance the gender balance or not? And so on and so forth. The second point is I think we need to have a clear plan, and really a clear plan altogether to have equality, really gender balance. That means that each SO needs to select 1 woman and 1 man mandatorily. The non-com must select 4 and 4. It will be a first step. It's not all about the other question. I'm sorry. It's not the only question we have to solve in the world. We have to talk about diversity also, but at least if we can solve this one, it will be great. And I hope that you will help me and us to achieve it. Thank you.
thank you. So you are somehow in favor of having this quota established for some leadership positions?
From my point of view, yes, and I would like also very much that when the non-com select women, and sorry, madam, they don't just select from one country. For the first time in the story of ICANN, the board is composed with 5 people from the same country. It's the first time in the ICANN history, 5 people from the same country. I don't think that's diversity, especially when it's US.
Rhonda, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, no, just as a personal experience, I tend to agree with Tripti. That is, we as women do not help each other. That is normally the situation. And when we do that, I was president of Patent Office in Brazil, and all my directors were women. And I was attacked all the time by the press because I have no men, but I didn't hire no one. They were there. So it's something that is, cultural behavior is a process, in my opinion. We need to establish some rules, trying to push that, but it never works when it's mandatory. In my opinion, mandatory things never works better. Because sometimes, for non-com, for instance, you have a better man over there. So, no, I know, in France, no. But, you can choose the best solution for any board. But any time that you oblige anyone to do something, it will be a mistake, in my opinion. So it's a process, of course. In my age, probably in Avri, we had this facing that challenge. But we survived. I have been national secretary, I have been in the board. So if you face the challenge, you can win. Okay, you can win. And that is something that certainly is not easy for women, but it is a long process, but it is a process that is improving.
Yes.
So we need to face that we are improving. So push a little bit, help each other a little bit will make a difference. All the other mandatory things will not work.
Thank you. So we have two different views, and I
You
remember.
see, that's a woman saying we don't need and a man saying we need. I want to underline that because I am struggling against women who have gender balance. I am struggling against women for that within ICANN. And I don't know why. Then when you say that you are not supported by your fellow women in general, it's my struggle as a man is to have the same number of men and women in the board of ICANN. And always women say, no, we can't. We have better people to put in the board than us. That's crazy.
That's your interpretation. That's the problem of language.
This is a mini meeting.
Okay, I tend to agree with Sebastian. But anyway, different views of something that I agree with Wanda, that it's a process. I have a great hope in new technology, in new generations. I have Laura, and then
You had right there behind you.
and John and
Aida.
Aida and yeah. Okay, let's start with we have to leave the room at 25 past 5, right?
What's your timer?
That's your time.
Is that when we have to be out of the room?
Because we have to
In the class, it needs to be clean.
Laura, where are you? Laura, go ahead.
Very short. I want to say that I agree with Wanda, with all what she said. And I also want to say that I learned something from you. And many times, women we don't apply for the jobs or for the positions, and that's why we are not selected. We discussed that several times, and well, I applied